Please excuse me as I'm eating chocolate-covered almonds. Hello. Hi. How you doing? What's going on? Okay, so today we have got the Awakened Kingdom for our live show today for the NK Jemisin Readalong. This is going to have some spoilery stuff in terms of the content of the book, content in the series of the Inheritance Trilogy. So if you have not read the Inheritance Trilogy and you have not read the Awakened Kingdom, please be forewarned. I have messaged Bree. I do not know if she is busy today. So we shall see if she arrives. Bree, any minute. All right, so I guess for right now, we'll kind of just jump into it. Basically, let me double check something real quick. I want to make sure that, okay, yeah, my microphone's connected. Okay, good. For a second there, I thought for some reason my camera wasn't. It is. Our camera, my microphone. I'm tired, y'all. It's been a week. All right. Glasses are off. Let's get down to business, shall we? So, The Awakened Kingdom is a novella that takes place thousands of years after, or 8,000 years after the events of the Inheritance Trilogy, which at the end of the Inheritance Trilogy, we learn some things. Hello, Elises. Hello. Welcome. So yeah, we basically learn a lot of things about essentially how the world is set up in terms of after the events of the Inheritance Trilogy, where the gods are still kind of like involved with everyday life. They are, still pretty prominent in this world, even 1,000 years later. And at the end of the final book in the Inheritance Trilogy, The Kingdom of Gods, Sia, who is a character we have known from the very beginning, very childlike character, very much a character that has a lot of unresolved trauma that they delve through in the Kingdom of Gods specifically. He ends up finally actually dying for the very first time. In the Kingdom of Gods, he never really had the ability to die. He really just held on to one life as long as he could. And then when he builds this connection with these humans, it causes him to then become more human, which then meant he was going to age rapidly, essentially matching up with how old his soul actually was. So at the end of that, he dies. And in this novella, The Awakened Kingdom, we basically see a new incarnation of him, which is, again, a very childlike character. Now, I adored her. I think I adored her more so than I did Sia at first. Just because there was certain scenes, especially when listening to the audiobook, that I was like, there is no way you can't not love this character. I can't remember her name for the life of me. I apologize. It's been a minute since I've read it. It was like probably mid-July I read it, so it's been about a month. But I just remember there was a particular scene where in the book, she goes on this like flying journey and all you hear is like, wee! And it was like the coolest thing. I know that like for specific reasons, the audiobooks in some cases are better than the physical books. And I think that this is one of those. I think that the audiobook made the story a lot more fleshed out, and I feel like it made it more fun to read. That being said, I gave the novella about a 4-star. I thought it was fine, but Bree has specifically talked about how this is kind of like an unnecessary addition to the story because there's not really much that's developed. I would argue, though, that the overall story really follows our main character as she's developing this friendship with this person who is going to help her find her purpose. Now, it is kind of mentioned that the character is a little bit more gender fluid of sorts, but goes by mostly her in the book. It's okay because for most of the story, she had no name. Okay, that's what I thought that was the case, but I could have been wrong. But again, going back to that kind of gender fluid aspect, there's not really much of a name given to her. But I actually like the Awakened Kingdom because it really honed in on how important Sia was. Yes, I will give it this. I think that Sia plays a very large part in the story, and I think that for a lot of reasons, when it came to maybe the Kingdom of Gods, people would be like, what really was the point of him? We saw him, as a secondary character in the 100,000 Kingdoms, and we kind of liked him, but he was, he's like a kid. In the Broken Kingdoms, he's not really there except for maybe like one or two instances. And then the Kingdom of Gods, he has his own entire book. So what's his purpose? I do think that the Awakened Kingdom really did hone in on his importance. But I will agree with Bree that I feel that this was a little bit unnecessary in the sense that if it was going to be something, I would have preferred for it to be a fully fledged book, especially when looking at the world, because I feel like I didn't quite understand a lot of how the world was really like massively different compared to the rest. But in this short story, basically, our main character gets involved with a person who is going to help her find her purpose, because she hears from all the other gods that they all have a purpose. They all have this goal. They all have this thing that they are looking to complete in their life. And she doesn't really know what hers is. She doesn't really know what exactly is going on. And so she's enlisted this guy who is basically like a demon of sorts to help her. And in exchange, she is going to help him with his magic because some of it's a little hokey. Sometimes authors can't let go of the world they've created. And I think that was exactly the case. I think that this was a way for NK to really finally put the final nail in the coffin in regards to the inheritance world. I just wish that I think if this book would have been a fully fledged novel, I would have enjoyed it a lot more. And I think it would have gone over a lot better, because from what I could read too online, a lot of people were really disappointed in this, in the fact that it wasn't something longer. It wasn't something more fleshed out, which I think I understand why she probably didn't want to flesh out more, because maybe she felt that there was enough fleshed out already with the other books. But this takes place so many years down the line. Like, how is it different is what I wanted to know. I feel that obviously the demons are more ingrained in the world than they probably were previously, but still, like there's something to be said about, building on the story, building on the world. And like, even for a novella like that, there should be some kind of like continuity of sorts. I feel like I missed that. And I don't know if that's because I just completely like it went over my head or what, but I just felt like this story could have been a lot more. And I wish it was a lot more, but I'm happy with it overall. I think it was a really interesting novella. I really like the idea of continuing Sia in a different format, where literally a different body, a different incarnation of Sia. And I like how it kind of felt like we were starting over. That is one thing I will say I loved about this novella, is I did feel like we were completely starting over from scratch with this reincarnation, which any of you guys are fans of Doctor Who, you don't really feel like that a lot of times with the doctors, because it's like they get caught up on everything and then they're good to go. Whereas with this, it does feel like you're really starting from scratch. The one exception I will say is with Doctor Who, though, is that, I mean, obviously they don't always have all the memories of what happened to the previous incarnations, but like it's kind of so seamless, the changes between the different doctors, that like it doesn't feel like you're really fully starting over. Whereas I feel like in this, with the fact that we saw at the very end of the Kingdom of God Sia die, and then have him essentially reincarnate into something different, it did feel like it was a brand new character. It was a brand new start. It was different. It was something that was more removed from what we had seen previously. So I think in terms of, let's like go now into like as a writer, how does NK get into how is NK as this kind of an author? Obviously, as a novel writer, she's amazing. We've already figured this out. As a graphic novel author, we already know amazing work. Far Sector was absolutely amazing. Absolute favorite thing. My most favorite graphic novel right now of all time. But when it comes to short stories, I also think maybe pretty good. It was good, but I feel like, again, she's such a great novel writer that I wonder if maybe what I'm missing is that novel aspect. And I think that she's better suited for novel work, especially if it's already a part of an established world. I think we kind of covered that a little bit already, where like, because this is an established world, I would have preferred something a little bit longer, a little bit more fleshed out. But it was very different. I mean, I feel that compared to like how a graphic novel is, a graphic novel by itself can either be standalone or it can be a part of a larger world or a series, but it kind of gives you a taste of something. But with a short story, especially a part of an established world, and especially being the tail end of an established world, I would think that it'd be better suited for a novel. I would have preferred that to have been fleshed out more. Now, if this was, let's say, there was nothing Inheritance Trilogy about this. As a writer, her short stories, phenomenal. Really great. Really enjoyed it. I just think in the context of the situation in which it's placed, needed to be better, needed to be longer. Definitely felt different. It was still sad. Yeah, it really was sad. It really was, especially I feel like this was a book about existential crises in a sense, because you have a character who it's kind of like, like I don't know, like existential crisis is kind of the thing that I keep thinking of, because this entire book is a character looking for their purpose, right? It's the character looking for what they're supposed to do in life, what they're supposed to gain out of life. And not gonna lie, I kind of had a few existential crises in the course of reading that, because I was like, oh my God, what is my life? What am I doing? Am I supposed to be doing what I'm doing? Like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I think it was cute. I didn't really didn't feel strongly one way or the other. Well, great. I'm glad that you did, Elise's. I don't necessarily would say I feel strongly that it's not as good as the rest of the books. I just think that I really wish it would have been something bigger. And I think that may be me as a person, because of the fact that I am a more novel individual myself, in the sense that I prefer novels to novellas. I prefer novels to short stories. So I think that maybe that is clouding my judgment in a sense, where like, because I prefer novels, I would like to see something more fleshed out. I mean, I felt the same way when like reading any of my friends' pieces, like in college when I was taking like fiction writing courses. Like when it came to like a short story, for instance, somebody had written a short story, was intended to be a short story, I always felt like there was something where I was missing something. And I constantly feel that with novellas, unless there is one that is really well done, to where all questions are answered, everything's wrapped up. I think it's very rare for me to find a novella or a short story that does that, though. And so I'm always looking for something that can be explained more. But I think that's also just because I am an overwriter a lot of times, not so much an underwriter. So I think that plays into it too, where like, if I was writing something, I would write every single thing possible, and then cut out from there. Whereas I know a lot of people, one of my coworkers in particular, is very much write the basis, build on that. And I feel like a lot of times novellas for me are as if they are in that realm, not so much my realm of where I would write everything. Like, I'm trying to think of it like in a couple different ways. And so overall, it's great. It's a great like novella. Do I think it was 100% necessary? I'm going to go with like, it's like 80%. definitely like a high like percentage necessary, but I don't know. It's kind of there. Fair. I think at that point I wanted to move on. I think that's why I didn't mind its novella size. I agree I would want something to be wrapped up, but none of her stories ever feel wrapped up, but wrapped up for now. Yes, I would agree with that. I think so. I think that with both Inheritance and The Broken Earth, you're 100% right. They're wrapped up for now, it feels like. And I think that's intentional because I think the idea is that not only does she maybe want to eventually come back to those worlds, but I'm also willing to believe the idea that she's done with it and is pretty much just leaving you to decide what happens next for them. Sorry. Um I I think it could go either way. Like I would see both sides of that. I do feel like though that this really was like the final of it all. Like I think for any author of a fantasy world, you always should have the option to revisit something. I mean, look at how Cassandra Clare's done. Look how Robert Jordan did. Look how Andrew Sapkowski has done with The Witcher. Like I love it when authors decide to revisit worlds. Can it get a little out of hand and to the point where, you just like, can you please just stop writing in this world, like, and move on to something else? Yes, it can definitely get to a point, especially if you're not enjoying the books as it is, which if that's the case, then why don't you read something else, But I love when an author is so invested in their world and in their characters that they want to literally milk everything out of that, everything out of their brain, everything out of their heart, body, mind, and soul within that world. It's kind of why I really appreciate authors like Cassandra Clare. Even though I haven't read a ton of her work, I haven't read the entirety of the Shadowhunter world, for instance, right? I respect the fact that she has so many ideas in her head that she's even pulling in other people to help her with writing different aspects of it because she can't do it all. I wouldn't expect her to. So I feel that like with NK, for instance, I would be happy to see more from the Inheritance world, but what else is there? What else can we see from Inheritance? What else can we see from Broken Earth? I would be curious to know. Like, I would want to read something that's going to be substantial in those worlds. Even if it's just a new character, I want there to be like something really, really there. And I think that's why maybe she hasn't put anything out yet within those worlds, because I don't know if she thinks that she has anything that can go above and beyond what she's already done with those worlds. Exactly. I think she wants the option to revisit. And I think she does. I think she definitely set herself up to be able to revisit. Whether or not she's going to do it anytime soon, I don't know. We'll have to see. Maybe it's just thinking about what can be done to effectively revisit those worlds. I often wonder too when the novellas were written because it could have been before the novels, but published after the success of the novels. That's a good question. I don't think I know the answer to that. That's a really good question, whether or not she had written that previously. Because I mean, like, let's look at like Octavia E. Butler, for instance, Lacey, since I think you're a part of that read along too. With the Pattern Master series, the Patterness series, they were all written in different time frames. So I wouldn't be surprised if this was originally a novella that she then explored more onto, which then became the Inheritance trilogy. And then this was kind of like, oh, by the way, here's like something I did, way before everything. I'm actually curious. I'm going to look that up real quick because I definitely want to know if that is something that happened. Inheritance trilogy. And yada, yada, yada. Okay. Okay, maybe that doesn't help me. The Awakened Kingdom. Can I find a Wikipedia of some kind? Please and thank you. That would be great. Wiki. I am not seeing anything. Yeah, I can't even find like a Wikipedia on it. That's interesting. That's odd. Right. Say it because I read it as a continuation of Sia's book, but looking back, it also felt like a story written before Sia's book, like an inspiration to shape Sia's greatness. Yeah, because like, you know, it's like you said earlier, Elysis, right? Like the whole book was looking at Sia's importance in the world. I mean, like the whole time this character is going through this whole purpose searching thing is because they want to become great like their previous carnation, Sia. And like, I would not be surprised if that is the case of what happened here. And I'm curious now because I don't even know if I've seen anything about Jemisin like talking about that in particular, like in interviews or anything like that. I don't know whether or not that's the case. Let me see. What about this? Yada, yada, yada. There's a wiki fandom apparently for the Inheritance trilogy, which is quite nice. Wiki fandoms can actually be really helpful. But it only has books 1, 2, and 3. It doesn't have the novella. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Sia. Yeah. It does not say anything, so that's okay. We'll figure it out later. But yeah, no, I wouldn't be surprised if this was something where she wrote it initially. Like, I don't know if anybody else has done this. If you're a writer, let me know. When I was a kid in class, when I would have to write stories, like I'd have to write short stories for my English classes, for instance. Ever since I was a kid, I would write something small, something like fairly short that then would lead me to start thinking of how can I flesh out that world? How can I flesh out that story, especially if I really liked it? I wonder if with N.K. Jemisin, this was the case with the Awakened Kingdom. If this was something she had written years and years and years before, like as a younger writer, right? Just writing something for the sake of writing something, right? And then that built on, okay, how do I build out this character of Sia that she's so, trying to meet? Okay, what does that mean in terms of the rest of this world? How do all these other people, play into that? How does Etempus play into that? How does Nahadoth play into that? How does Yena play into that? All these different things. And then how does, Etempus, as a person, as a god, how does he interact with this world if what he does and what he has done like has consequences, and what happens with that? I would be curious if there's anybody that knows of an interview with N.K. Jemisin where she talks more about that, because I have not seen anything as of yet. I have not seen any kind of interview of her talking about anything past like the core elements of the Inheritance trilogy, like anything that goes a little bit more in depth than her discussing about Sia and our main character in the Awakened Kingdom. The more I talk about it, the more I do like the novella, but I'm still hesitant to give it anything like a 5-star, because I did have some issues with it. I did feel like I kind of glossed over some things because I wasn't as interested as I may have been in like the Kingdom of Gods or in the Broken Kingdom or, anything like that. But In terms of overall where this kind of ranks for me, obviously Broken Earth trilogy is still my number one. I still love that series so much. Inheritance as a group of books, I really, really enjoyed. I so see why people are drawn to this series and why people love this series. And I think it's just because of the fact that you when you understand the importance of Sia and you understand why he is the way he is and how that plays into so much of the story, you can't not enjoy that to some degree. I think it's kind of one of those series, though, where similar to my experience, right? You're reading this series and you're trying to find the real truth of the matter. What is this series? What is the best way to like look at it? And it can be difficult to try to explain that to somebody who hasn't read the series. And so then it's difficult to get people to read it because it's like, I can't tell you, whether or not you're going to like this or what this is about, because that spoils everything. So you just need to read it for yourself. Well, for a lot of people, that's not the way that they are able to get into a book. So I think that is where this series is not as popular, for instance, as the Broken Earth trilogy. But I really appreciate the fact that this was like her first series, like getting really into all this. And I'm glad that this is one of those series that did put NK on the map. I think that in terms of getting into her work, this is the best one, because Broken Earth can be so complicated sometimes that it's easier to start with Inheritance than it is Broken Earth. And if you want to read something fun and quick and sci-fi, Far Sector. Easy. Super simple. But I really did enjoy Inheritance overall. I do appreciate it. I do think that it's a good series. I would be definitely consider reading it again to find little Easter eggs or things that I didn't notice the first time, just like I would want to with the Broken Earth trilogy. But I don't think I would do it as soon as I would maybe the Broken Earth trilogy. Inheritance trilogy is the best to start with. It's easier to digest and get into. Broken Earth is my favorite series, but book one of both series are my favorites overall. Far Sector is my number one. Yes, Far Sector, most favorite thing out of everything so far. For me, besides the fifth season. The fifth season still is like really high up there. Like that and Far Sector are pretty much neck and neck. I think my favorite book out of Inheritance trilogy was actually The Broken Kingdom. The Broken Kingdoms. I loved the story of A Tempest. I felt like I was so much more rooted in that spot of the world. And it was so fun to read a story about a blind character and how that, and like what she's able to see despite being blind. Like that was like just a whole new thing I was not aware that I was missing from a story. I loved it. I loved The Broken Kingdoms. Absolutely amazing. Far Sector was my first NKJ read ever. Oh, that's awesome. Well, it's no wonder then that you rave so much about it, because it's so good. It's so good. Yes, that was a beautiful concept. Yes, I agree. Like stunning, and then the relationship with A Tempest was beautiful. I love that was what propelled everything in the Kingdom of Gods as well. I really like this series. I do think I would go back and reread it a lot. Art is top tier. It is. It is top tier. And like, Sojourner can get it. She can get it. And it she shall have. Truthfully. So no, but yeah, I'm really happy to have read the Inheritance trilogy. I am happy it's over because now we get to move on to something else. But I'm happy I read this series because I definitely feel like I understand why people really like this series and why people fell in love with her writing in the first place. Hey, Elises, I gotta entertain you. You're like one of the only people here. There's another person here, but I don't know who it is because they're not saying anything in chat. Person, say something in chat. Peer pressure. No, I gotta entertain you somehow, you know? Also, like I said, it's been a week. I've had a time. So, yeah. Okay, so with that, this might be a pretty short live show today because I don't have my co-host with me. Yes, I'm happy to have read it too. I know now how to make my recommendations. Good, glad. I'm glad for you. Like that I feel like too is something I've learned a lot when it comes to reading this. This is why I love these kinds of read-alongs where like we're reading so much from one author, because especially like if it's an author you've never read before and like you want to be able to recommend something from them, but you have no idea, you know, how to recommend anything or like how to talk about any of the books, like this is such a great like way to do it. And that was my hope with this, was that I would be able to read these books and be like, okay, so if you are more magic based and that's what you want, go with the 5th season. If you're a little bit more world based and you're looking to find like Easter eggs kind of thing, go with the Inheritance trilogy. You want sci-fi, go to Far Sector. You want, you know, something different, you know. I am so excited though now to read The City We Became at the end of the year. I am so thrilled because I think that that's going to end up becoming like a surprise series for us where it, like maybe people like didn't like it as much, but we're going to really enjoy it. That's my hope. Knock on wood that I don't jinx it. But yeah, so no worries. It was a novella. Yeah, that's the thing that I thought of too. I was like, if I can make it an hour, like I'm doing pretty okay, because a novella is very hard to talk about for more than like 20 to 30 minutes. So anyway, though, so when it comes to our next read, our August read is going to be How Long Till Black Future Month. It is one of the most polarizing reads, I believe, of NK. I thought it was more essay driven, but I do believe it actually is more story. I'm not quite sure. Let me go grab the book. It's right over here on my bookshelf. 1 second. Okay, so this is the book, How Long Till Black Future Month. Also, I love this right here. Like all these, like this looks like desert rose, the desert rose crystal. I just love it. But yeah, so the back of the book talks about how like just praising NK, obviously, as she deserves, giving her the flowers she needs and the flowers that she deserves. Like they talk about how this is kind of like an introduction. So I think it is a short story collection. For some reason, I kept thinking it was essays. I don't know why. I just kept thinking it was like nonfiction essays, but this actually makes a lot more sense. I'm glad that I did this because I surprise myself sometimes. It's good that we had a novella to read in July because this is an entire collection of short stories, apparently, which is great. So now next time we can talk more about her work as a short story writer. So I'm pretty excited. And I do think that some of them, or at least the introduction, is going to have some information about when she wrote the stories, like anything about like what goes with what, if it's part of, you know, Broken Earth or Inheritance or whatever. Either way, I'm excited. I am super excited to see this. So I will be basically rating this as a collection by averaging the ratings of each of the short stories. Now you do it as you want, but that is how I will be rating this for myself. And I'm just jazzed because, like I said, we don't have very many short stories out there. I know that NK did an Audible thing called Emergency Skin, which I have, which I would be interested in reading too. In line with this, unless it's in here. I don't think it is. I don't think it's in here. Let me see. No, because I think that Audible one was part of a series with other authors. So yeah, it's not in here. But I will be reading that one too alongside it. Don't feel like you're obligated to read Emergency Skin with me. I just want to read it, because this is short stories. But very excited for this. So if you are joining us, this is a great place to start when it comes to N.K. Jemisin, because we just finished off an entire series. Now we're going to be moving into a collection of short stories before jumping into the first of 2 duologies that she has that are kind of her lesser known works, or works that are not as favored by readers. So How Long Till Black Future Month is our August read. We will be doing the live show in the first weekend of September, which is the weekend before Labor Day. So it's going to be Saturday, September 2nd. So it's only a few weeks away. But unfortunately, last weekend I was gone because I had a wedding I had to go to for my cousin. So that's why we didn't have the live show last weekend, but that's why I wanted to do it today. So you have 3 weeks to get How Long Till Black Future Month read. If you guys are okay with it, we also could push it out to the 9th, which would be the Saturday after. It would be completely up to you guys. If you have any thoughts on that, like shoot me a message on Instagram or anything like that. And let me know if it would be preferable for you to do it on the 9th, because if I get enough people where it's better to do it on the 9th rather than the 2nd, I'll move it. But for right now, we're going to stick with Saturday, September 2nd, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, just like normal. And if you would like to join me in talking about How Long Till Black Future Month, please feel free to let me know. I would love to have some of you guys as a co-host if you would like, just like I had Bree co-hosting with me, how I had Courtney co-hosting with me. I would love to have somebody, sit and talk with me about this and talk about like their favorite story on the collection or anything like that. Like, let me know. Let your girl know. So otherwise, hope you guys are doing great. I've been very, very busy. I've had a lot of things happening over the last couple of weeks, some of which you may notice if you follow me on TikTok or you follow me on Instagram. You'll have seen quite a few new things popping up here and there. So I've been very busy, but I'll talk about that another time. I am thinking if I can manage it, I would like to try to do sprints sometime this week. I don't know. Don't hold me to that because I don't know. I feel I missed you guys. I haven't been able to be on sprints with any of my friends in a while, just because I've been so busy. So I'm hoping either I will be able to hop on to somebody's sprints next week, or I'll be hosting my own sprints again sometime. But we shall see. So, down for either. Okay, cool. So if anything though happens where like you guys definitely feel like the 9th would be better, just let me know. So anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me today. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. If you would like to, like I said, join in, please feel free to do so. Have any questions, reach out to me, anything like that. But I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Have a wonderful night. And I will be posting other videos and stuff here and there. They're just a little bit more sporadic because I have a lot of things going on. So, but yeah, so hope you guys have a good night. Bye, everyone.